something incredibly serious. The jobless number hitting a record. That's the headline of the release from Stats SA yesterday in today's Business Day newspaper. South Africa's economy is not creating jobs fast enough to absorb all the people entering the job market, which has led to the number of job seekers unable to find work rising to a new high of almost 8.4 million people. Jon Foster-Pedley is a director at the Henley Business School. Jon, I mean, what needs to happen? What undisputably, non-ideologically, contestedly needs to happen in South Africa to improve the chances of those 8.4 million getting jobs and keeping them?
Thank you, John. It's incredibly serious, and we can all talk about the problem for hours, but let's not. Let's go straight into what you've asked. As a country, we can only grow if we educate people better. And so we need a dramatic revolution in our approach towards what education means. And I know that's a longer-term solution, but we cannot possibly do any changes unless we do that. So the education system from top to bottom needs to be rethought and made a national priority without any shadow of a doubt. The second thing we need to understand, I think, that we can't grow unless we have the resources, the electricity, the basic transport. Transnet needs to work, Eskom needs to work, and luckily we're seeing some great improvements there. Let's hope they're sustainable. Thirdly, it's a type of education we need to do with the people that are coming out of school. We're not preparing them enough. We need to prepare them for an economy both that we're in now and that we want to create. And so that means a whole load of more skills. The TVETs need to be obviously resurrected, non-ideologically, understanding that they're there to match growth sectors of the economy. And beyond that, I think there's some things we're not really thinking about enough. And I think that agriculture and giving people land in a way that, and the skills to make that land work, is essential. And you might think that's an ideological position. It's not. It's just a very practical one. We've got lots of people living on land that can be fruitful and provide some more food security for people. We can change the way people get nutrition, the way they can support themselves in simple and quick ways. Better forms of agriculture, permaculture, using small land in townships or in the villages in different ways. All these things make big changes. But overall, we've got to have a change in attitude about South Africa. We've got to understand that South Africa is a brilliant, beautiful country that full of people who have talent without the opportunity to be educated sufficiently or to exploit it. And I think if we understand that we need a national consideration that we are going to have to work for 20 years hard to turn around South Africa and to get the sort of prosperity we want our kids to have. That doesn't mean it's going to be austerity for that whole period. It means it's going to be hard work. And unfortunately, there's no way around it but to do that. So we've got to start thinking in small ways, helping small businesses grow, changing government in a way that creates opportunity for everybody, not by giving people jobs only, but also by giving people the skills and capability to allow them to make their own livings. So really, it's an ideological change at a very high level about South Africa and a great positive feeling about South Africa. We can do this if we work together.
If the most significant and first priority is to have better educated people, then this is not something that can be changed around in half a decade or a decade, because it is going to take time, surely, to change the education system, put people into that enriched education system that sees them exiting better placed to take a job, which we hope will be waiting for them. So are we condemned then? Let's assume that there is this rethink, that there is this ideological shift around education, and that the right kinds of educational approaches are put in at early childhood learning, so important, primary school, getting the basics right, high school, diverting people into the TVET system so they come out equipped with the skills which are needed in industries which are capable of growth. So are we condemned to keep hitting jobless number records for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Or are there things that could be done more immediately that, while they might not wipe out the 8.4 million, might reduce it to only 6 million people without jobs?
Yes, I absolutely think there is, John. And again, when we get into a crisis like that, the urgency of the crisis drives out the important. So I think we have to state that we'll be perpetually in crisis until you really commit to working on the longer term issues as well. That doesn't mean it's an either or. It's obviously, it really is an and both. There's a lot we can do for people to give them employability skills. Only 5 or 6 people who start school end up with a degree within 6 years of leaving school. 6 out of 100, I mean, which means that, we're way behind the rest of the world, 50%, not 5% in Britain. So we can actually do a lot in our schooling system to help people get other forms of skills as well. Youth unemployment is manageable only if you've got enough businesses growing or government is providing employment for people. There are national projects we should work on, not only in the TVETs, but we can get people to understand how to produce food, how to build. We need to understand that one of our major assets is our tourism industry and the natural assets of South Africa. We're not putting any value on those, and we need to really lobby that those things have value on them so that we can actually produce industries around tourism that are sustainable and not destruction of the environment. But in shorter term, what we need to do is really work on people's technological capabilities, and what we can do that. There are ways in which you can increase the infrastructure for connectivity. There are ways in which we can get reasonably cheap tools to help people learn. We can teach people coding skills. There's a brilliant initiative run now by Nelson Mandela University and the Lever Foundation to teach school kids coding by a sort of a physical, tangible, cardboard-based coding game. Now, it might sound nothing, but this is in 600 schools and the 2 continents already, a South African thing, not used in South Africa.
John, sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
with an eye on the clock, I mean, the things that you've been telling me are not eureka insights. They're not things that I'm hearing for the first time and going, wow, what insight. They are insights which have been available for discussion, which have been put on the table for a couple of decades, and they haven't been accepted. We haven't diverted from the economic course that we have been on for 30 years, let's call it, with greater success between sort of 1999 and 2008, let's say. I mean, do you see any signs that there is a greater acceptance of this need to shift and to shift in the direction that you've been outlining?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, John. We're not looking for sensational new answers. The answers are sitting there. What's missing is the willingness and the collective commitment to get activist about these, to start making them work. We don't need to have extraordinary novel solutions to things that are actually quite comprehensible. What we need to do now is to get a joint consensus. We are going to work on these things. Companies need to put money in. We must push government to put projects in place that work. We must support people to get this. The real thing is, can we manage them? Can we commit to them? So while the answers don't need some magic kind of invention, the magic invention we do need is something in ourselves that we are going to commit to this. I commit to this, you commit to this, many other people commit to us. I think there's a changing now, potential for a watershed in South Africa that we will get to work on doing these things. And unless we actually do this, then we don't have much hope. If we do this, and we can, and it's going to be hard work and grueling work, then we can solve this. And now's the time that we get activist about this. We start pulling each other together, saying we're going to count the initiatives that are working. We're going to make publicity about initiatives that are working. We're going to believe in what we can do and stop looking for magic solutions, get down to the practical, the common sense, and start implementing it.
Jon Foster-Pedley, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this afternoon, a director at the Henley Business School.